Due to the graphic nature of this program, viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, everyone. It is the Wednesday, March 4th, 2026 episode of The Mark Dre Show. Thanks for tuning in to hear today's groundbreaking news right here in America and across the board, where the facts are facts and hard truths thrive. Let's begin the best hour of radio, informative, uncensored, unapologetic, and ready to go as always. Welcome to day 5 now of Operation Regime Change inside Iran, ladies and gentlemen, with no end in sight. You know, before I started today's show, there was a headline on Fox News, and it says Iran is now targeting civilian sites. And I thought to myself, what did I watch yesterday on the television? What did I watch yesterday on streaming platforms? I watched the funeral of 165 young preteen schoolgirls inside Tehran, which has at least now 1 million people in the streets now at this funeral, as missiles continue to hit Iran inside Tehran. Which again I thought was a pretty remarkable demonstration that there is support for the current government. They're not very happy about this, that we're seeing this. They're not happy that the United States and Israel hit a gymnasium and killed 20 different women. We even hit a hospital prenatal clinic, for God's sakes. Now, I pray none of this is intentional. I have no idea if it is or not. But the fact of the matter is that it still happened. We are hitting civilian sites inside Tehran. We're seeing this. It's undeniable. And of course, if Iran is intentionally doing the same thing, it's abhorrent. Now, you can blame it on bad intel. You can blame it on missile precision capabilities. It still happened. Now, as a result of this, we're now seeing that the masses inside Iran are now coming out, still, regardless of all this, in support of their governments and not the West. That's very evident. You'll see demonstrations inside America. Right now, there's many people in the streets in Los Angeles carrying the Shah's Iranian flag. No doubt about that. But inside Iran, you're not seeing this type of same mass gathering against the government. You're just not seeing it, folks. And if you were, I would be telling you this. In fact, the opposite's happening. The support behind the government is rising inside Iran. You're bringing these people together. That's what's taking place right now. Nobody wants to see dead school children. Nobody wants this, especially girls. But nobody wants to see dead women. No one wants to see hospitals hit. And this is where we are right now in this war, folks. By now, understand my position, though. The United States is at war with a foreign nation for, I guess, a plethora of different reasons right now. We can't seem to get one single definitive answer right now. And it changes on depending who you're listening to. President Trump yesterday said that it wasn't Netanyahu that forced him into this war, though. That's what he was asked yesterday inside the Oval Office. And it seems, of course, we really don't know why. Trump has his own estimation of why he did this. Let's listen to clip 1 so he can defend himself on this.
Did Israel force your hand to launch these strikes against Iran? Did Netanyahu pull the United States into this war?
No, I might have forced their hand. You see, we were having negotiations with these lunatics, and it was my opinion that they were going to attack first. They were going to attack. If we didn't do it, they were going to attack first. I felt strongly about that. And we have great negotiators, great people that do this very successfully and have done it all their lives very successful. And based on the way the negotiation was going, I think they were going to attack first. And I didn't want that to happen. So if anything, I might have forced Israel's hand. But Israel was ready and we were ready, and we've had a very, very powerful impact.
So let me get this straight. Let's understand this, ladies and gentlemen. Let's break down what he just said. He calls the Iranians that he's negotiating with, they're lunatics, right? That's what he says first. Okay, that's a fine position to have, okay. But why would you schedule another round of negotiations on Monday if you thought they were going nowhere? That's what I don't understand. They met on Thursday. The negotiator from Oman said that negotiations were progressing. That doesn't mean anything was going to happen. But then we just come out on Saturday, early Saturday morning, and start bombing them? Because it was his opinion that they were going to do something. It was his opinion the negotiations were going nowhere. And who are these great negotiators? Well, it's Steve Witkoff, who has no diplomatic negotiating skills whatsoever. Maybe he can negotiate a real estate deal. I don't know. And then, of course, his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, who has absolutely no government title or position. What have they negotiated for us that has resulted in peace? These two. Those of you that have been listening to the show know that the last time they were negotiating with Russia, it was all about money and monetary gain. It had nothing to do with anything as far as ending this war between Russia and Ukraine. So we've got to ask ourselves a question. They're great negotiators, but what were they actually negotiating? Were they actually serious about this? And to me, the answer is the definitive no. Because we would have peace by now. And again, we're not seeing that. Yesterday I played for you, I believe I played this clip for you, Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, and his take on what's happening so far.
You committing that Iran is not and will not build missiles that would have the capability to reach the United States?
I can confirm, yes.
Sir, if that's a red line for you, why is attacking U.S. military bases abroad justified?
But because they are attacking us. They are U.S. military, installations, facilities, bases who are attacking us. We are under attack.
So they're under attack from us, not the opposite. He doesn't say we're just going to go and attack them. He makes it definitively clear that if attacked, and I've said this to you on the show before, if they are attacked, they will respond in kind. And they're holding up to that promise right now. Then you've got the likes of Marco Rubio coming out. For example, he gave it away yesterday. He let the cat out of the bag that we followed Israel into this war. Now he's trying to backpedal on this, though, right? He came out and said the following.
Yesterday, you told us that Israel was going to strike Iran and that's why we needed to get involved. Today, the president said that Iran was going to get.
Yeah, your statement is false. So that's not what I was asked very specifically. Were you there yesterday?
Yes, I asked a question.
No, were you the one that? Because somebody asked me a question yesterday. Did we go in because of Israel? And I said, you were asking me that. You that follow up, and I said no. I told you this had to happen anyway. The president made a decision, and the decision he made was that Iran was not going to be allowed to hide behind its ballistic missile program. That Iran was not going to be allowed to hide behind its ability to conduct these attacks. That decision had been made. The president systematically made a decision to systematically destroy this terroristic capability that they had, and we carried that out. I was very clear in that answer. This was a question of timing, of why this had to happen as a joint operation, not the question of the intent. Once the president made a decision that negotiations were not going to work, that they were playing us on the negotiations, and that this was a threat that was untenable, the decision was made to strike them.
Okay, so let's pause this again now. He's saying many different things at the same time here. So, number one, he's saying it wasn't Israel. Okay, let's take him at his word for it. It wasn't Israel. But then the question is, you went in because President Trump just made the decision. That means there was no imminent threat, was there? But this, again, contradicts what he's saying just the day before. So now he's saying it's the ballistic missile program. They're using it as a terrorist focal point for them. And President Trump made the decision to go in. So there was no imminent threat, though. So there is no use for the War Powers Act, which means you also didn't consult Congress in a vote to declare war for us to go in and conduct these attacks. But if there was no imminent threat, what was the reason for going in then? It was one man's opinion, one man's decision to go in and do this. There was no threat from Iran. They're telling us this. And by the way, this was Rubio yesterday essentially telling us it was Israel. So he's kind of eating his own words today.
There absolutely was an imminent threat, and the imminent threat was that we knew that if Iran was attacked, and we believed they would be attacked, that they would immediately come after us. And we were not going to sit there and absorb a blow before we responded. If we waited for them to hit us first after they were attacked, and by someone else, Israel attacked them, they hit us first, and we waited for them to hit us, we would suffer more casualties and more deaths. We went proactively in a defensive way to prevent them from inflicting higher damage. Had we not done so, there would have been hearings on Capitol Hill about how we knew that this was going to happen and we didn't act preemptively to prevent more casualties and more loss of life.
Amazing. It's like he forgot what he said yesterday. He said he knew if Iran was attacked that we would soon be attacked. Absolutely. So there was no imminent threat. Israel attacked, and then we responded with Israel because we knew they were going to retaliate from these strikes. That means there was no imminent threat. He just admitted that Israel went in, and then we followed right behind them. So they can't get their story straight, folks. That's the problem with what's going on here. They can't seem to get their story straight. And it's kind of sad to see this, but what do you expect from this administration right now? There was no definitive plan to go in. They thought it was going to be a one and done. It would be very easy. And it turned out to not be the case. Obviously, Iran is holding up their end of the bargain, and they are responding in kind. You listen to people like Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, said it was Iran's ballistic missile program now that created a shield. So under it, they can create this clandestine nuclear weapons program. The only problem with that is there's no evidence of that at all. It doesn't exist. Look at any of our intel reports. Listen to Tulsi Gabbard saying there are no nuclear weapons being produced inside Iran. Look at all the IAEA reports. People that have gone into these nuclear sites, they verified there are no nuclear weapons. It's not just me saying it, okay? This is what the intel is telling us. Then you have various senators like the low testosterone Lindsey Graham cracker coming out now telling President Trump to help Israel fight Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. These people are crazy. These people are crazy. And before we go on, I got to tell you, that the United States realized very, very quickly that we created a blunder in all this. You know how I know this? I found this out yesterday, too, by the way. Guess what we did on Saturday after launching this unprovoked attack on Iran? A member of the U.S. State Department reached out to their peer inside the Italian Foreign Ministry Department, and they conveyed a message to them that they wanted to reach Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, asking for a ceasefire. Isn't that wonderful? So the same people who are lunatics, you're asking them on Saturday to stop this? Let's end this right now? To which, of course, they responded, no. What did they tell? They told us what they were going to do. If attacked, they will respond. They will hit U.S. military installations, embassies, you name it, oil fields, oil refineries, everything. Everything. And they're not letting up now. This is now a regional war that we've got ourselves into. And there is no, you bomb this empty building, we'll bomb this empty building, we'll call it quits. Iran has been ready for this. They've known this was coming. They saw how President Trump acted last June, and he acted the exact same way. Negotiations were supposed to begin they were supposed to have the negotiations on a Sunday. And of course, on a Friday, Israel goes and attacks them. What happened this time? Israel attacks them on a Saturday when negotiations are on a Monday. Same thing. Always on the weekend, of course. This is the plan, and they probably anticipated it. That's what it comes down to. So don't believe the poker faces this administration is showing you on television. And again, good luck with getting any of them to agree on what the hell's happening. It just shows you they were not planning this in depth. There was no real strategy, and they have no goal in mind. One saying it's ballistic missiles, the other one saying it's nuclear weapons, the other one saying they're lunatics, they're not going to agree to what we want. Well, what you want is unrealistic, by the way. They're not going to give up their ballistic missile program in any capacity because that's their only deterrence, because they don't have a nuclear weapon. They're not going to zero enrichment because, again, they have to have it for medical purposes, civilian purposes, like every other developed country. Now, I know many of you like to think that Iran is just simply this backwards country that's incapable of anything civil, but that's not the case. That's not the case at all. And by the way, if we can't agree on an objective here of this war, of what the purpose is, how do you fight a war? And again, who's going to hold them accountable? Well, there's no shortage of any support of this inside Congress. Again, go listen to Lindsey Graham, listen to Tom Cotton, listen to these people. And then you have the Democrats pretending to be upset about this, but make no mistake, they love this. But where were they when the Biden administration, for example, was spending upwards of $300 billion on Ukraine's war, after Biden helped stop a peace treaty about a month after this conflict, along with Boris Johnson in April of 2022? No, but none of them said a damn thing about that. Where were any of them when Netanyahu was leveling Gaza too, by the way? Where are they? Where are these people? Or Obama's illegal bombings of Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Libya, Pakistan, Somalia, and Yemen alike. All without congressional approval. All illegal. Where's the consistency behind any of these people? I dare you to find any one of these frauds today appalling by this conflict. Any of them. Again, they talk a game, but again, behind the scenes, they do all the same thing. That's what it comes down to. They all pretend to all of a sudden be opposed to this war now. But again, where were they when Obama was doing the same thing? When Biden was doing the same thing? It's all obfuscation from these people. Not because it's wrong or it violates the Constitution or international laws, but because it's Donald Trump doing it. So it gives them a nice talking point so they can stay in office. They might as well just be paid actors, these people, on television. That's all they are. They aren't representing their constituents or upholding the Constitution. Follow the Constitution. Now, myself, as a constitutional conservative, I look at the Constitution, I look at the facts, and I say, what's going on here? If there is no imminent threat, folks, if Iran was not going to bomb us, or our sites, our military installations, there's no need for this war. You're in the middle of negotiations. Why would you strike a country in the middle of negotiations? But let's see where we are on day 5. Let's go on to the fact of the matter. Where are we on day 5 of this? Okay, you know my position on this war. It's illegal. It's unconstitutional. There is no need for it. And we know that, obviously, the United States wasn't happy with their progress on Saturday because they were calling for a ceasefire, or at least begging for one, which they didn't get. They underestimated the Iranians. Again. But we still have Iran destroying all U.S. military embassies, diplomatic buildings, all throughout the Middle East. That's a fact right now. That's happening. And again, Iran is pushing Israel to the brink very badly, I'd have to say. Look at Tel Aviv right now. It looks horrible. As Israelis now fleeing to shelters, bomb shelters, for example. Even have refineries being hit inside Israel. It's not good. It's not a good position to have. And then the Gulf Arab states are now also suffering as a result of these Iranian strikes. Iran has now kept the Strait of Hormuz closed right now. Again, I got this article in Reuters right now. It says at least 200 ships now, including a liquefied natural gas tankers, as well as cargo ships, remain anchored in open waters off the coast of major Gulf producers, including Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar, according to Reuters estimated based on ship tracking data from marine traffic platforms. There we go. This is going to be a big problem right now. This is a big problem. You're cutting off all the trade coming out of that region, which again is very rich in energy. There's hundreds of other vessels remaining outside of the Strait of Hormuz, unable to reach ports. Shipping data is now showing us. And the waterway is now a key artery for about a fifth of the world's oil and liquid natural gas supply. This is going to be detrimental, and that's why you're seeing the markets inside Europe and Asia alike responding to what's taking place right now. That's why you're seeing it. President Trump doesn't want to be responsible for that. Because that's not good for his image. That's not good for their economy. It's not good for our economy. And he understands this. So that's a problem for him. And he's going to own up to that. It's also resulted in Qatar now stopping all of their shipments by the way of liquid natural gas. And of course, Iran has now struck a power plant water tank and the Ras Laffan energy facility inside Qatar. So this is a problem all across the board because now it's not just the fact that you can't ship your oil to market. Now your whole refinery is up in flames, or it's inoperable for the time being. That's going to put a damper on all his oil production. Big problem. So it's not just the strait is closed, you can't even produce this oil. You don't have access to it. That's a big problem. And the economy will struggle and reflect as a result of that. You got Lloyd's of London now, this big insurance company, and they've announced that it will no longer insure any ships in the Persian Gulf. Again, we need to break this one down because it's very, very important. And again, I have this article for you in Politico that we've got to look at right now. This is insane to me that this is even happening, but it is. And this just shows you Trump is scared about what's happening right now. It says U.S. mulls military support for vulnerable oil supplies in the Strait of Hormuz. What is President Trump offering, though? Now, he took to Truth Social and said the following about this, but it says the White House will offer naval escorts and political risk insurance for oil and gas tankers traveling through the Strait of Hormuz. I want to say that to you one more time, just so we're clear on this. The White House said it will offer naval escorts and political risk insurance for oil and gas tankers traversing the Strait of Hormuz. So that means we're going to put our ships in harm's way? And we're going to give insurance risk to these ships? What happens if they end up in the bottom of the Persian Gulf? Do we pay for all that? Where's the writing on that, by the way? Who's going to believe this? That we're just going to fork over this money? Now, this is always done in a bid to cool the energy prices that we've seen surging since, obviously, this war has taken place. And President Trump knows this, by the way. This is where we are in it. But are we really going to take U.S. taxpayer dollars? Are we really going to risk our own ships to try to go through I think it's about 35-mile width of the Strait of Hormuz, to try to get through and not be hit right off the coast of Iran that definitely has installations? And again, if you look at the terrain inside Iran, it's very rocky. It goes very high. It's not just flat terrain. Okay, so they can have installations hidden in these areas that they can use to strike our ships and, again, these oil tankers. They've said that the Strait of Hormuz is closed. They've closed it. They're not letting any ships pass through. So that leads me to believe they're ready to act in kind should ships decide to try to go through it, including our ships as well that are aiding and abetting them and guiding them through it. This is a big problem yet again, folks, because now, if our ships get hit, we risk the possibility of people dying, of course, casualties, the loss of U.S. ships and vessels, of course, alike. That's a big problem. Then you risk the fact of course, these ships now being at the bottom of the ocean, these oil tankers, these gas tankers, any other kind of shipments that are coming in and out of this Persian Gulf. And now we're going to give insurance policies based on this with our money? When the hell did we sign up for this, folks? I don't remember doing that. Jeez, I mean, this is unbelievable that this is even being said. I don't know if it's in writing or ink or anything, or if we're going to get the money. How would we allocate the money for this now? That's a big investment. I think we'd all agree on that. Again, this was not thought through. It just shows you right now. This was not thought through. I don't think even this statement was thought through, to be honest with you. But Trump sees that the energy markets are remaining nervous and that the key oil and gas assets in the Persian Gulf could be targeted, and he wants them to get through to keep the market from going upside. I mean, that's just the way it is. Look at this, though. He says, effective immediately, I've ordered the United States Development Finance Corporation to provide at a very reasonable price political risk insurance and guarantees for the financial security of all maritime trade. Yep. This will be available to all shipping lanes. If necessary, the United States Navy will be escorting tankers through the Strait of Hormuz as soon as possible. So he's doing this to, obviously, let investors know that the strait will be open. Goods, particularly energy, will get through the strait, and we won't see this bottlenecking of oil. As I said to you before, a fifth of the world's oil comes out of this region. That way the markets, obviously, don't panic and go upside. That's the way he's trying to play this off. I don't know how much this will cost us if these ships are hit. I don't know. Obviously, it's not good for anybody. But the idea that we're just going to fork over this money and give it to these foreign countries that are not even our ships, again, with our own taxpayer dollars, is very funny to me, folks. By the way, CNBC, just to reiterate this is why they're saying this. This is why they're coming on doing this. Because they saw yesterday that the markets responded greatly to what's going on. We saw Brent crude, WTI, again, beginning to go up. And that's obviously not good for our own gas prices. That's a big problem. The markets have to respond to this. So what he did, he sent out good old Scott Bessent. And it says here, oil turned lower today as a result because Bessent told CNBC that the White House would make a series of announcements to support oil trade inside the Gulf. So they're reassuring us that everything's going to be fine. It's not going to stop the market flow. Supply will continue to move out. Everything's going to be just fine. And he says, we have a series of announcements that we're going to be making. We began yesterday with the announcement that the DFC, so again, he's retorting what President Trump said, will provide the insurance for both the crude carriers and the cargo ships operating in and around the Gulf over the weekend. Tanker traffic through the Strait of Hormuz has come to a standstill as ship owners fear that they could become a target of Iranian retaliation strikes. The strait is the most important choke point in the world for oil trade. About 20% of the global oil consumption is exported through the strait. So then the question begs, why the hell would you start a war that you cannot finish? Why would you start this unnecessary war when they told you, for example, we will shut down the Strait of Hormuz? You knew this was going to happen. You can't claim ignorance on this. They knew it was going to happen. So what was their go-to? Well, now escort ships? I mean, this is ridiculous. We're going to put our own boys at danger? And gals, by the way. Risk our ships getting sunk to the bottom of the ocean? What kind of nonsense is this? And again, for what? We don't have a what. We don't know what it is. Is it the ballistic missiles? Is it the nuclear weapons program? Is it the regime change they want? Remember, folks, the first target they hit was the Ayatollah's compound, where he was just sitting with his family. And when that didn't work, what is it now? Well, it's the ballistic missile program. We got to go in for the ballistic missile program. Ballistic missiles, we know that the foreign minister just told us cannot hit the United States. And when asked why you would hit U.S. installations, the only reason he gave was the fact that they've been attacked. So if we didn't want this to happen, why would we attack them? Well, we know why. Because Israel went in. There's no other way to say it to you, folks. And again, Rubio let it slip out yesterday. Now he's trying to come back and say, no, I didn't say that. Well, yeah, you did. And then Trump's trying to do the same damage control, of course. But Rubio said it. We know those 6 missiles that hit the compound were Israeli missiles, not U.S. missiles. But make no mistake about it. This was a joint effort. Rubio says again, yeah, it's a joint effort. We got to retaliate. We don't want to get hit. Okay, so it was, we own it then. We struck first. There it is. It's right out there in the open. You can't make this stuff up, folks. You really can't make this stuff up. It's sick to me that we're seeing this, though. So yes, the Fed can now print out more money of ours, maybe give it to non-citizens, these companies that aren't even ours, that are going to have lots of loss. Again, this is not going to be cheap. And again, meanwhile, you and I can go straight to hell. We're going to be paying for this. Fantastic. By the way, we're also seeing both Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates now have their oil refineries and critical infrastructure being hit. Just to give you a little purview of this, inside Saudi Arabia, the U.S. Embassy in Riyadh was hit by 2 Iranian drones and falling debris, also, from 5 drones started fires at the Ras Tanura oil refinery and the Prince Sultan Air Base as well. Inside the UAE, also had a pipeline hit and destroyed by Iran, so now we can't even move oil by pipelines now in that region, so they're going to be struggling, just so we're all clear on this. Also inside the UAE, we had the U.S. military installations at the Al Darfa Air Base and the Al Minad, also sustaining mostly just structure damages right now. But again, these are not operable right now because they've been hit. So no one's going to go in these areas where they know that they could be potential targets. People are going to evacuate. By the way, we've also seen Kuwait, the international airport there has been hit. Ali Al Salam, U.S. Air Base, and the Camp Bering U.S. Army base has been hit, and the U.S. Embassy was also hit with an Iranian missile. Fantastic. Bahrain is also seeing the same thing inside the Persian Gulf, seeing the U.S. Fifth Fleet headquarters being hit, the residential towers being hit, and Bahrain International Airport as well, the Crown Plaza Hotel, the Mina Salam Port inside Bahrain were also hit. So we're seeing ports, we're seeing the flight infrastructure, we're seeing, again, our military installations being targeted and hit right now, causing them to be inoperable. Iran is also hitting key U.S. sites and all these Gulf states, by the way, and has also shut down all international airports in the region, so there is no air traffic right now. And why would there be? Of course, if we see missiles all throughout the skies. And by the way, I'm told that Dubai has had to close down their airports, as I just said to you before. But as a result of this, just the shutting down of this international airport, they're losing some $500 million a day because of this airport closure. So nothing good on anyone's front, folks. People are not happy about this. This is not positive. This is not good. And on the contrary, the United States and Israel are, again, still striking, primarily inside Iran. However, most of these structures are empty buildings, I've been told. And of course, by now, all the intel, the important information inside these buildings has been moved prior to these airstrikes. So we're hitting empty buildings. But one thing I do want to hone in on, too, I do want to talk about the 88 members of the Assembly of Experts. We've talked about this prior. And if you've been listening to the show, you know that these members are elected by the people of Iran. Again, I told you, Iran's a democracy. All these 88 people are selected by the Iranian people. Okay. But the important thing is that these people are the ones who select whom the supreme leader is. And yesterday it was alleged that they would be voting on who the new supreme leader would be to replace Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Now, it was said this building was hit where they were meeting, was bombed yesterday when they were doing this vote. There has been no updates thus far that I can find or casualties as of yet, so I don't know if any of these 88 have been killed. I don't know if the meeting was simply scrapped. We don't know. So that's up in the air as of right now today. But it is rumored that the Khamenei's eldest son, a ranking cleric, I'm going to try to say his first name, Majtaba, I believe is how you say his name. I don't know. Forgive me. I don't know how to say his name. Khamenei would be the next likely pick for this. So it seems as though he would be the next likely pick. So, as I told you before, the successors are already considered for the people in the governments, and what happens should happen to them. Should anything happen to them, we know that they're going to be selected. There's a line of succession right now, just so we're clear on this. So the taking out of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, while it seems monumental, and it is, that we've assassinated a world leader, there's already a successor in line. There's already people in consideration. That's the way this is working. And you see the government coming together and fixing itself. Just like you would see it if anything, God forbid, were to happen like that inside the United States. There's a line of successors in place to take control, should anything happen. Same thing goes with inside Iran. So let's just be aware of that no, there is no regime change. No, nothing is taking place. The government isn't shutting down. You haven't killed all the military leaders right now. None of that's taking place, despite what you're hearing on some of the toilet stream media that's taking place. By the way, yesterday Scott Ritter, on Judge Andrew Napolitano's show, brought up a very important fact too, by the way. And he said that Iran still has access to 450 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium now that they still have access to, that the U.S. has claimed to have destroyed. But they also have 164 centrifuge cascades, which are necessary to allow that enrichment to be taken to over 90% to build a nuclear weapon. So they have the capability to do this. Now, the two fatwas are still in effect as of right now. But if true, this is a very monumental position to be in. Because right now they've been abstaining from building nuclear weapons. We know this. I've told you this. Other factions have told us this. But this, my friends, is the reality of not working towards diplomacy and thinking we can just bully people around with our bravado. It's not working right now. We're seeing that right now. Again, it's not working. It's not making any of us safer. I'm very disappointed in this administration, obviously, to say the least. I want to see diplomacy. I want to see peace. I want to see people working together. I'd like to see free trade. But if you were to ask me in 2024 if President Trump would get us into a war with Iran, I would have laughed at you. I think most people would have too. We would have said, no, Trump is a peace president. He's running as a peace candidate. He's going to get us out of these wars. He's a great negotiator, the art of the deal, 5D chess, all these things you can, say about President Trump. I don't believe about the 5D chess, I would say, but we did not elect Donald Trump to BS us into another foreign war, of which presents no risk at all to our national security. That's where we are right now, though. We didn't end the war in Ukraine. We didn't end the war in Gaza. Now we're seeing Israel striking inside southern Lebanon today. We didn't see us striking Yemen to the tune of $1 billion. We couldn't even defeat the Houthi rebels inside Yemen. And yet we think we're going to take out Iran. A much bigger country of 93 million people strong, and a people now that you have brought together with these strikes. By pushing or doubling down on the war talk now, with this blunder with Israel that we find ourselves in. And make no mistake about it, Israel wants this war too, by the way. That's the reason why we're in this situation. We risk a much greater now risk of regional war, and now risk a greater world war, should other nations begin to get involved in this. And we're seeing people starting to take sides. We don't know if Russia or China will get involved in this war. China has come out and said they will not support Iran in this. We'll see what Russia does. But folks, this is not peace through strength. Let's just be very clear about this. I see the idiots on social media. Peace through strength, peace through strength. This is what I voted for. No, you didn't, you idiot, you moron, you. This is war before diplomacy. This is when you can't negotiate things. Nothing good has been negotiated so far. And this did not have to happen. There we go. So that's where we are right now in this war. And this is going to go on, estimated for a couple more weeks. They're estimating 5 to 4 more weeks. I don't know what the objective is, though. Do we just give them everything we've got? Trump said the big one is possibly coming. What does that even mean, the big one? I don't think he'd be foolish enough to use nuclear weapons or allow Israel to use theirs. I hope not. But my God, what is the end goal? We don't know. Nobody knows because we don't know why we're in this. I don't even think they know why we're in this. We just simply followed Israel's lead in this. Hoping a regime change would happen. Install Pahlavi. Not working. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. I told you before, we lost this on Saturday. This war was lost on Saturday when we killed the Ayatollah and martyred him. Say what you will about Islam. Again, I have my own critiques about it, certainly. But these people have now come together. They're not backing down. The government did not fall apart. And as a result of that, we lost. You can bomb empty buildings. You can cause casualties inside that country. But they're not backing down as of right now. They have been planning this well in advance. And I don't tell you this because it makes me happy that we're losing or anything. I don't want to see us lose. I want to see us win. I want President Trump to be successful. I want him to fix our economy. I want him to grow trade. I want us to grow GDP. I want us to secure the border. I want him to double down on crime inside the United States and keep our country safe. That's what he ran on. I want to see peace on earth. I want to see him make peace deals. We know he's capable of it. But everything he's promised us, he's done a complete 180 on right now. The economy is not good right now. And while we have some successes with the Trump administration, he's focusing on these foreign wars. He's not ending them. And instead, we're doing things like abducting the president of Venezuela in the middle of the night under bogus charges that he's this drug kingpin. Even though we know that the vast majority of fentanyl that comes to the United States comes in through Mexico. Make sense of that somehow. Why do we do that? Because we want the oil inside Venezuela. That's what it comes down to. Notice that government is still intact too, by the way. That didn't collapse. Of course, we see the now president, Delcy Rodriguez, playing ball with the White House. But they're getting a little weary about that too right now, if you really look at some of the reports coming out of that area. And the idea that the oil there would just be flowing into the United States and, everything would be great and the price of oil would go down. That didn't happen. Because, again, another misstep. They didn't realize the Venezuelan crude oil and the Aramco oil belt there is extremely dense and very difficult to produce, and it's tough to get out of the ground, and they were anticipating this too, the Trump administration. Again, it's showing you Trump is surrounded by sycophants, not thinkers. Certainly not critical thinkers. I mean, when you have oil in the ground that's as thick as peanut butter, as I'm told, it's not easy to do. It's not easy to get out of the ground. And they're coming and saying, well, we're getting, millions of barrels coming in the United States. Folks, they can only produce about 735,000 barrels per day, if they're lucky. So you're not getting millions of barrels in this vast deposit of oil. And again, it's very difficult to get out of the ground. You got to go through so much refining. There's only so many places that can do it. You've now got to ship it by oil tanker, not through pipeline, like our crude oil that we get out of Alberta. It costs more. These things are not well thought out. And this foreign policy that we are embarking in right now is not beneficial to us at all. Let's just be very clear about this. And now that my blood pressure is now through the roof, ladies and gentlemen, let's get on to some other articles that we've got today. Let's go over something positive. I know in a time like this when we're in war, it seems like nothing can be positive. Well, that's not really the case. Let's look at this article I have for you in Breitbart. I like this article. This is a good article. This makes me feel good. ICE agents arrest illegal alien sex offenders, rapists, fentanyl dealers inside sanctuary cities. Well, that's the job they're supposed to do. I think we can all be happy that we're getting criminal illegal aliens off the streets. Now, we look at this, we see where we are, we identify these creeps that, again, should not be inside the United States. We got to understand something, though. These are the public safety threats we elected President Trump to take out, removing them from American communities every single day. And by the way, ICE is doing that every single day. It's not to the number that it should be. He promised us mass deportations. We're not getting mass deportation. We're removing criminal illegal aliens. No doubt about that. I have no qualms about that. We're doing that. But nearly 70% of the ICE arrests that we're seeing take place of illegal aliens are people that have already been charged with crimes or convicted of a crime inside the United States. On top of the illegal crime of course, coming in the country illegally and doing God knows what. But this is what we're dealing with right now. And yes, we should be focusing on criminal illegal aliens. They would be taken out already if these sanctuary cities played ball with the federal government. They're not doing that. We're seeing this take place right now. You're seeing Abigail Spanberger, for example, inside of Virginia, saying they're not going to cooperate with ICE any longer. So if they arrest somebody who's an illegal alien, we're not going to cooperate with ICE. We're not going to tell them. We're not going to detain them. We're not going to hand them over. We're going to put them back out on the streets once they, I guess, serve whatever crime they've committed in jail. And that's the problem with this. We should be looking at our jails right now. How many people in jail are illegal aliens, roughly? About a third, if you look at the data. Most of them are in there for drug dealing, by the way, on top of other charges, largely. We can't go to our jails and get these illegal alien pieces of human garbage out and deport their asses? Why not? We can't find out where these people are? Then how are these people able to get such benefits from various states, by the way? How does that work? Bring Elon Musk in. I'm sure he can figure this out. The idea we can't find people in the United States in today's surveillance state is beyond me, obviously. We can find out who these people are. We can identify who these people are. We can get these people. We can serve them warrants, and we can remove them. So don't tell me we can't do this. Now, I know the Democrats are making it difficult with the stopping of funding to DHS. I understand that. But we could still get these people. We could still figure out where they are. Let's take a look at some of the human scum, though, that are inside this country, thanks to open borders and the do-nothing Democrats and Republicans alike. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to meet Gaspar Florentino of Mexico. Florentino was an MS-13 gang member who was previously convicted of aggravated sexual battery of a victim 13 to 14 years old, as well as rape by force, threat, and intimidation inside the sanctuary hellhole of Fairfax, Virginia. Way to go, Abigail Spanberger. Likewise, in the sanctuary city of Chicago, where Mayor Brandon Johnson continues to destroy that wonderful city, ICE agents have arrested Juan Leonardo Alvarado Gonzalez of Guatemala. Okay, fantastic. Who was previously convicted of predatory criminal sexual assault of a child. These are the people the Democrats are in the streets promoting. Then we can look at Giancarlos Marte Morel of the Dominican Republic, was arrested in the sanctuary state of Massachusetts after having been convicted of conspiracy to distribute and to possess with intent to distribute fentanyl. Fantastic. A real Emmy Award winner. I mean, they might as well just roll the red carpet out for these people, right? You know the Democrats in Hollywood would. Don't you think so? I think so. Well, probably not. No. I don't think so. ICE arrests also Rudy Uceda of El Salvador, previously convicted of a criminal sale of a controlled substance in the sanctuary state of New York, while Minh Ta Soon Tran of Vietnam, previously convicted on 3 counts of burglary, was arrested in the sanctuary city of, again, Fairfax, Virginia. These are the people we're pulling off the streets right now. Can anybody give ICE a hand for this? And again, I'm not saying defend ICE at all costs. If they break the law, they break the law. They should be charged. But you've got senators like Old Dick Durbin, Alex Padilla, with the tears, right, when he gets arrested, objecting to what Secretary Noem in the Senate hearing is telling people. They're saying that, no, these are good people. Everyone's a good person, right? Everyone's fantastic. Do you think either of these two would be around any of these people right now or let them in their homes, around their children and their families? I don't think so. Not by a long shot. Oh, by the way, let's look at this article I have for us in the Gateway Pundit. Again, these are good articles today. These are articles we can look and say, there is still good that exists in the world. There is still good and merit inside the United States. And this one really hits home, of course, because under President Trump, we're seeing a lot of progress, especially in the pro-life movement, which we can all get behind. I would hope so. Again, as we celebrate the 250th birthday of America coming up this year, again, a monumental feat, of course, we're witnessing an unprecedented protection of the tools to do this pro-life work in the Second Amendment of the Constitution, given us by our founding fathers. And by the way, this is something we can all get behind. This is something good. So in other words, freedom is on the rise. Tyranny inside this country is on the run in some aspects of it, of course. But one example is that the freedom of speech is being defended more effectively in America than it ever has been right now. And we see this in aspects of the Trump administration, and we can all applaud this. And they're using this funding now as a pressure point to underscore that conservative Americans will no longer be silenced. And where do we see this? We see this in many different aspects of our government right now. We're seeing it in workplaces. We're seeing it on college campuses. We're seeing it in media. We're seeing it in social media. We're seeing it on the streets. We're also seeing it done in churches right now. We're seeing that people are coming out in backing of the pro-life movement. That's what we're seeing right now. Now, among the newly freed from the shackles of silence are the nation's clergy. And by the way, just recently, President Trump referred to an executive order he signed 4 months after being inaugurated, the first time that removed the gags from the clergy, for whom decades worried about, obviously, the church's involvement and, of course, their tax-exempt status. What is he talking about, by the way? We talk about these things that Trump is doing, and brilliantly so in some aspects. But we're looking at things, and it goes back to really a long time ago in this country. It goes all the way back to 1954 under the Johnson Amendment. By the way, it doesn't say this in this article, but I'll give you the background of this. And the Johnson Amendment was this provision in the U.S. tax code that really made every religious institution a 501c3 organization, a nonprofit organization, right? And what this tax code did, though, it prohibited these religious institutions from endorsing or opposing political candidates, ensuring that they were nonpartisan in their status. So in other words, if I went to church, for example, they can't say, we need to get behind so-and-so because they're a pro-life candidate, and X, Y, and Z is a, piece of garbage candidate that is funding abortion and in support of it and what have you. So in other words, they can't talk about these things in their communities. And obviously, churches are in people's communities. These are places people go to worship, but they know people. They rally around a common cause. But what the Johnson Amendment did was it kind of put a stranglehold on this. So they can't come out. Priests can't come out inside the, and ministers alike in the pulpit and say, we've got to stop this. So-and-so is promoting X, Y, and Z. In Sacramento, so-and-so is writing this type of bill. We've got to come out against it. They can't say that. Because if they do, they will lose their tax-exempt status, and they don't want to lose that. So instead of, coming in the pulpit and speaking about the politics and what's going on inside society today, and speaking out against it, they're more reserved today. Now, I'll give you an example. When I was in California, we had an amendment in the Constitution. They were going to make abortion a part of the California state constitution. And my church was opposed to that. Now, they can come out and say they're opposed to it because it was in a ballot measure. But if there's a candidate that's pushing this, or for example, a governor like Gavin Newsom who's pushing this thing, they can't say things about that. They can't say that Gavin Newsom is one of the most pro-abortion governors inside the country. They can't do that. Or he's the most anti-parental, anti-gun governor in the world, pretty much. They can't do that. So really, I'm not saying churches should just always be political, but they should be able to talk to their congregations about what's taking place around them. What should we as Christians and Catholics, what should we be supporting? How do we come together? And by the way, these are big organizations, churches. You have people all around the country. If the pastors were actually talking about this, we'd probably make the country a much better place. But they fear, a lot of these institutions that take government funding, by the way, and don't want to lose this tax-exempt status, they don't want to lose that, so they stay silent, by and large. This is why we see these things. So I'm very happy to see that we're pushing in the right direction. President Trump recently said at the National Prayer Breakfast in D.C., said people like me and a lot of people want to hear this from their ministers. They want to hear this from their priests. They want to hear this from them. And you were restricted from talking about very important things like who to elect. Trump is absolutely right about this, by the way. And I got to applaud him for this because this is true. We have to eradicate anti-Christian bias from society. That's really what it comes down to. And again, this bias is aimed squarely at the heart of the pro-life movement, among other things. But churches should be able to speak out against the amoral things we're seeing in society. The transgenderism, the DEI, some of these other things, again, the anti-parental movement that we're seeing inside states like California, for example, where Gavin Newsom signs all these bills against parents raising their children. Parents where they, if they oppose certain things like transgenderism and, again, pushing for all these other things that prevent parents from having a say in what their children do. For example, what takes place in the public school that we all pay taxes for. All these things are very important. We should be speaking out against this, but a church is a place where we can come together and say, listen, we've got to understand. We have our Heavenly Father, Jesus Christ. Then we have the role of the parents inside the family. And then, of course, we have the children. It's an umbrella. It works in that faction. It doesn't say the state of California is up at top, and then, of course, they control what the kids do. And we take out the parents. That's what they've done successfully. And if you look at the country since 1954, when you start taking out things like in 1962, prayer out of public schools, when you see all these things take place, you understand why the country is in the state that we're in right now. Because they've been pushing us further and further and further to the left. Oh yeah, they could speak out against things inside the classroom. They can promote these things. But you can't say anything inside a church, for example. Make it make sense, folks. I wish we would. But that's what the Jones Amendment did, and that's what they wanted to do, and that's what they've achieved, of course. And we've got to see the revival of our churches not just become political. I'm not saying that they should just be, hell-bent on being political. But we should be able to speak out about things like war, like things like that are nefarious, like abortion, the transgenderism, which again is all spiritual stuff, by the way. These are all things that if you look at some spiritual aspects of things, these things are very, very evil. They come from very evil places. And we should talk out about these things inside the church. We should be getting people riled up. We don't want to just hear some lukewarm speech every week at the church. Yes, we want to relate things to the Bible, but we should be talking also about what's taking place in our society today, because we're living this. And if we look at where we are today in many aspects, a lot of these things took place in the time of Jesus Christ, for example, and in times before him, too, if we read the Bible correctly. And we should be aware of this, and we should be able to identify these things, and we should be able to speak out 100% against them, because that is our faith, and we should be speaking out against it. Okay. All right, folks. Very good stuff. But again, I'm glad to see these things from President Trump, and again, in the pro-life movement, we should be able to, again, speak out against these things, because murder is never the right thing. Ever. Okay. Got a few minutes remaining, folks. Last segment. Let's look at this article I have for us out of what is it? Just the News. Okay. Again, another positive piece of information today. Again, I like this. I like that we can talk about the idiocy of the war we find ourselves in and the economy that seems to be falling apart around us. And again, we can still talk about good things that are taking place. There's always good out there in the world, folks. Never forget that. It says here that measure to require voter ID in California gets over 1 million signatures. I like this. We need this. They especially need this in the state of California because, well, they don't have to show any voter ID. And I know because I lived it. But now we've got an initiative imposing new voter identification requirements inside the state of California, getting one step closer to getting it on the ballot. This would be monumental because we know Democrats, independents, and Republicans alike are behind this. They want voter ID. It puts up a safeguard so you can't cheat. Now, in a state like California where they can cheat, especially the Democrats, and they do cheat, only people that don't want this are people that would be cheating in these elections. Well, people are coming around to this. They're saying, listen, we don't want this. We back, and again, 83% of people across the board, 95% of Republicans, want to see more ways to prevent voter fraud. We don't want to see, for example, we go vote, and then weeks later we figure out who our congressman or woman is. We don't want things like this. We want to make sure that when you go vote, you are who you say you are. I don't know why anyone would be against that except a complete ignoramus or someone who's intent on cheating or doesn't care that people cheat. Those are the only options you have there. But inside California, you got roughly 1.35 million signatures now being collected. And by the way, if you're in California, get your name on this. To get an effort to get the California ID initiative on the November 3rd general election ballot this year. And again, it's well over the 800,000 signatures required, so it looks like it will pass. Now, it's got to go to the Secretary of State's office to verify the signatures, which I hope they have enough to get it on the ballot. But the new initiative now would require, here's what it says, here's what they want, would require voters to show one of several forms of identification that are valid, according to the supporters during a press conference on Tuesday morning this week. Those who vote by mail would have to, for example, write in the last 4 digits of their identification number on their ballot for it to be counted. The numbers would be from a form of identification of the voter's choice, so that way they can identify, for example, if they have mass mail-in ballots, you can identify that you are who you say you are. You live at the address you live at. How are you going to do that, though, if you don't have these things? And again, it squashes all the ballots that get thrown out there. They go to several different places. For example, I believe his name is Nick Shirley. I think that's his name. He's the kid that kind of goes around and checks for all the fraud that exists. Well, he was in California recently, and he was doing something on Skid Row where he's showing us the disaster that is Mayor Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom, and again, all the previous governors and mayors before them that have allowed this to get so out of control that we're seeing in California. But one of the things he did was he went to locations where it says 50 people are registered to vote here, and it's an empty building. Things like that. He's going there looking at these things. You can't do that, though. You can't do that if you have these safeguards in place. And that's the point of all this. State lawmakers who advocated for the measure said that it has really had the effects of bipartisan support as well. By the way, it's not just a one-and-done thing. It's not just one side versus the other, okay? There's other different people involved in this that want to see this, that are Democrats. They want to see this. And by the way, in January 2025, there was a public opinion strategy that showed that 68% of Californians support voter identification requirements, and 51% said that they strongly support such measures. This is what's taking place right now. They want to see these things. It's not just a Republican thing. It's everywhere across the board. Imagine if we got this in every single state. Imagine if we passed the SAVE Act and we got some sanity back in our elections so they can't cheat with these election machines that we know can be rigged, by the way. Imagine that. Folks, thanks again for being here. I appreciate you so much. Hope you enjoyed the show. Hope you learned something. Hope you'll share it with others. I appreciate it when you do that too, by the way. Make sure you keep it up. Your mind sharp, body strong, staying prepped with food, folks, especially in a time like right now with uncertainty in the economy. Get anything you need. Have a great rest of your day, folks. See you back here tomorrow for more groundbreaking news on the next Mark Andre's Show. Until then, be good, stay busy, God bless.